Test 1, 2, 3, test 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Cahill. That's great. Members, I have no apologies. Is there any apologies from the floor? None? Okay. Declarations of interest, then we will take them as we go. Online tonight we have Councillor Ratcliffe, Councillor Alexander, Alderman Barr, Councillor McCartan, Councillor McConville-Walker and Councillor Nelson. Okay, members, that brings us then to 3.1, which is an information item. Paul McCullough is on hand if there's any questions. No questions on that one. Paul has also kindly offered to take members to the new Air Quality Control Unit in Armagh City if they so wish, so thank you for that kind offer, Paul. Councillor Dowd, are you looking to come in? No, you're okay. Okay, no problem. Okay, members, we'll move on then. 4.1, and Claire is going to take us through this one, please.
Good evening, elected members. We have received an application for Circus Vegas to be located at our council site at Kernan Central Sports Arena at the gravel pitch from the 5th to 11th of May in order to facilitate performances of the Circus Vegas from the 7th to the 10th of May. There are no animals to be used as part of Circus Vegas, and the application is made in accordance with our booking policy and the council bylaws. This booking request, if approved, would displace some football bookings potentially and will also bring some additional traffic to the area. However, discussions have been taking place with the circus organisers to try to minimise any disruption to both the cemetery staff and to the general public in that vicinity. We've also consulted with Environmental Health in considering this application. Environmental Health staff have worked with the circus providers for a number of years now at all our locations and are happy to look at all of the licensing requirements for the booking. Members, it's recommended that you give permission for Circus Vegas to use the gravel pitch area at Central Sports Arena from the 5th to 11th of May 2026 to facilitate this circus. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And our first speaker is going to be Alderman Tinsley. I'll bring you in.
Okay. I'm not on yet. Fine. She's bringing. That's us now. Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, thanks, Claire, for the report, and I've no doubt that this is a great community-minded circus. However, when I received the papers yesterday, I was straight on with officers because it had mentioned about a traffic management system plan, which hadn't been attached to the report. It said how they were going to manage the burials and so on, and there was no detail of that. When I went on to several of the officers, I did receive the traffic management system plan, and it then suggested that the car parking was going to be used at the back where the Model Aircraft Club currently meet. They have no notification of this. The Model Car Club have no notification, and neither has any of the football clubs, and there's 8 of those on a Saturday alone. Now, my concern is cancelling all of those stakeholders that are there every single week. In addition to that, how we're going to deal with the funerals is there's no plan in place with regards to that. I'm also concerned about the car parking that there is at the Kernan Cemetery, that if cars for the circus park there, then there's no space available for those that are visiting the cemetery. I also was concerned about if we were back onto the double parking on the road, which, Jonathan, you will recall, our hearts were broke because residents could neither get up nor down the road because of the car parking system. Now, I did see the traffic management plan, and they're alleging that there's going to be 2 individuals looking after the 500 people coming in and directing them to ticket sales, as well as managing the traffic coming in. Now, I have a concern about that. In addition to that, my concern about them parking at the Model Craft Club, whenever COVID was upon us and the Trust used that car park, it was left in such a state that it took a considerable amount of money to rectify. Now, I am aware that there's a deposit comes in from the circus and that should cover the expenditure needed. However, it took up to 18 months to get the surface back before the individuals using the aircraft club could actually fly their planes without fear of damage. Now, I think I've covered everything. However, Armagh got a hold of this afternoon, and from 4:30 today, residents are very concerned about everything that I have laid out. They're just reiterating those concerns. My proposal would be, Chair, that we do not accept this recommendation. However, officers then discuss alternative sites with the company that will cause less disruption to residents and stakeholders. Thank you.
Members, can I get a seconder then for that proposal? I'm going to bring in Councillor Evans, were you going to second? You were okay, I'll bring you in.
Thank you, Chair. Alderman Tinsley has pretty much raised all the issues that I had in my head there too. I too have had residents on concerned. They're already tortured with parking down around that area, so I'm more than happy to second Alderman Tinsley's proposal and see if there's somewhere else that we can potentially use. Thank you.
Members, are we all agreed on the proposal that Alderman Tinsley has laid out? All agreed? Okay. Okay, members, we're going to move on then to 4.2 because that proposal then has been carried. So Marcus is here if there's any questions on 4.2. Okay. What about 4.3? Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor McClelland.
Yes, Chair, thank you for bringing me in. And there's not really a question, maybe just a couple of comments on 4.3, which is obviously the climate and sustainability update. And it's certainly to be welcomed in the sort of substance of the report that the action plan has been kept under review and that the topics and the themes continue to evolve, because then it goes on to talk about the Climate Act 2022, or I suppose in my opinion maybe the flawed 2022 Climate Act is part of the legislation that we now work under, Chair. And I suppose my substantive point is that almost no matter where in the world you look, those targets are being changed in terms of the net zero by 2050. And I think it's welcome that there's the realism, because it's fairly widely held view that it is a subject that's going to have to be revisited. As I said, just a few comments, Chair. No real question, but welcome the realism in the wording. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for those comments. Member, are we content to move on then? Okay, no further lights on. Members, 5.1 then. Lisa is here to answer any questions that we have. Is there any lights for 5.1? Content to move on? Okay. Correspondence then. We have correspondence in tonight as well. Is there any comments or questions on it? Content to move on? Okay. Members, can I get a proposer and seconder to go into committee for consideration of the confidential items of business, please? Proposed by Councillor O'Dowd and seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask ICT officers to please turn off the feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of the meeting can proceed, please? Okay, thank you. Can I get a proposer and seconder to agree the recommendations made in committee proposed by Alderman Tinsley and seconded by Councillor McClelland? Members, we have 2 items of AOB this evening, and Councillor Nelson, I'm going to bring you in first. Oh. You're at it again. There we go.
I'm here. Thank you, Chair. And look, officers won't be surprised by the issue that I am going to raise tonight. And indeed, I think members around the room will likely be in agreement. So just to give a quick background, I emailed the generic Enviro Services address recently asking for a clean-up in an area of Downmacash, Trasna. This includes some basic asks around leaves, mud, debris, dog fouling, and also raised the issue of access issues around the sweeper getting into streets, and asked for a letter to be sent out to residents. Now, bear in mind, I'm doing this because residents have told me they have been in touch with council and the response has not been positive. Chair, the response that I got back was less than acceptable for an elected member. It was generic. It offered me absolutely no information. In fact, if you'll bear with me, I'll read a short extract. It says, "We will arrange for the footpath along the Ballinary North Road and the footpaths on the Downmacash Road leading to Wolf Island on both sides to be assessed for leaf build-up by supervisory staff. Any remedial action required will be undertaken as resources allow and in line with current operational priorities. The mechanical sweeper is currently scheduled to service the Wolf Island Terrace area on a monthly basis, subject to resource availability. Thank you for your suggestion regarding issuing letters to residents in areas where the sweeper experiences access difficulties. Unfortunately, this issue occurs across a number of locations throughout the borough, and as such, it is not feasible to issue correspondence on an area-by-area basis. Kind regards, Environmental Services, no officer name." Chair, you will know that I took a few days to reflect on that, because I have to say, when that came to me as an elected member, I was aghast at the response that I had received, and therefore not surprised at the poor response that council had then issued to members of the public. I told you that I had taken a few days before considering my next steps, that elected members deserve a much better response than the below, and indeed we're entitled to much greater detail so that we can go back to our residents. And as and when approach to genuine concerns we raise on behalf of our constituents is far from good enough. I was deeply concerned by the sentence "on a monthly basis, subject to resource availability." Shocked, to be honest, that we only cleanse areas once a month. Or indeed, is it the fact that rural areas are treated differently? Flippant comments like "subject to resource availability" suggesting it might not even be done within a month period. And I also noted to you in an email that at a recent committee, members to my right asked for a second time for the rotas to be shared with members about the Blitz Squad, and I would say 8 weeks on, that has not been done. The letters issue is not true, because letters are sent out when bin lorries can't get in. Why is it different to our sweepers? I find this response a real can't-do attitude. I have always been supportive of officer requests to use this email address to not CC in individual officers, and I understand that our officers are very busy. And usually I have to say the admin team behind that are helpful. But I'm sure that you understand why I'm less than happy with this. And wanted to raise it publicly tonight, because as a council we need to do better. Sinn Féin have conducted a number of meetings, community meetings of late, and the biggest bugbear coming out of those meetings is the cleanliness or lack thereof of our streets. So as a council we need to do better, and I'm now just concerned that the Blitz Squad is going to become the cleansing team, and that's not what we envisaged or endeavoured. So look, Chair, I've said it to officers before now, I feel that the response that I've got today, and it only came today really, maybe yesterday evening, still didn't fully address the concerns that I had raised. Otherwise I would have been willing to remove it as an AOB item agenda. So Chair, I appreciate that you allowed me to speak much longer than is the norm, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. I'm going to bring in Councillor Evans before I bring in Claire.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Nelson for bringing this. I've always been one that's sing the praises of the Enviro Services email address because it usually does work and it's usually a very fast response. But 15 days ago, I reported a road that was covered in rubbish and it took a full week for me to get a response. The road's still not cleared up, and it was something along the similar vein of it'll be done when we have the time to do it. I appreciate that the cleansing teams are quite busy, and I get that, and the Blitz squad seems to be picking up a bit of the mess, but at the same time, it's not acceptable that we have to wait this long whenever we're the elected reps that are asking for a bit of help. A week for a response to an email, it is taking the line out of it, and I don't think I'll be using the Enviro email address anymore. I used to think it was brilliant and it was working great and you got a response pretty fast. In fact, you got it on the same day. I don't know what's happened to the system now, but a week's ridiculous.
Thank you, Councillor Evans, and I'm actually going to bring in Lisa, not Claire.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors, for bringing this issue up today. We do deal with a high volume of requests from services from members and members of the public through the Enviro Services email address. We have already met as a team as well to tighten up on the processes that we have around Enviro Services and the processes behind that and the response times. And we do need to come back to members to make sure they know that things have been closed out, and that is something that we are looking at the moment to reply through Enviro Services on that. So that is something that we are already actively working on. With regards to the leaflet, the outreach team is currently looking at a generic leaflet for refuse and streets that can be used for those access areas, and I will come back to you when we have a draft in format for those. So that's another area that we'll be looking at. With regards to the Blitz team, last month at committee, members approved the growth of the Blitz team then, so it is extended from 2 small teams, so a small resource to be a further 6 members of staff, another 2 teams. So they will be able to work more proactively across the borough then. So I will be bringing a further report back to the Environment Service Committee next month. So this will be through March, and this will detail the work of the Blitz team and any planned scheduled work that we do have and the wider street cleansing. There are also various work strands that have commenced to improve the street cleansing service across the borough, which I will be bringing back to members next month in more detail.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. The next AOB that we have this evening is from Councillor Mallon, please. Just press your button there.
Thank you, Chair. There's something similar. I would like to raise the issue of the ongoing fly tipping issues at My Rafferty Road and My Rafferty East Road, which continue to be persistent hotspots despite the close proximity to the local household recycling centre. The 2 locations are only a 2-minute drive from the recycling centre, which highlights a central concern. People are choosing not to use the facility and instead are dumping waste along the roadside. This indicates both a behavioural problem and a need for enhanced deterrence and monitoring. Furthermore, the situation is likely to worsen significantly due to the announced closure of the recycling centre for the resurfacing from the 9th of February for 3 weeks. With the only nearby disposal point unavailable, the volume of roadside dumping can be expected to increase sharply unless proactive measures are taken. Compounding these issues, it recently took 24 days from the date the fly tipping was reported till the council lifted the rubbish. This is totally unacceptable, particularly in a known hotspot where rapid removal is essential to discourage further dumping and prevent the site from spiralling into a continuous cycle of waste accumulation. In light of this, I will ask the committee to consider the following. Significantly improve response times for fly tipping removal, especially in recognised hotspots like My Rafferty Road and My Rafferty East Road. Dedicated monitoring and patrols of these locations, particularly during the recycling centre's 3-week closure period. Strengthen deterrent measures such as signage, CCTV assessment and clear enforcement messaging to discourage illegal dumping. A review of current service performance, including the 24-day delay, to ensure future reports are acted upon swiftly and constantly. Consideration of temporary alternative arrangements for residents while the recycling centre is closed to reduce the likelihood of increased dumping. Addressing these issues now will help to prevent a predictable surge in fly tipping, reduce clean-up costs and maintain the appearance and environmental health of the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mallon, and I know we have Lisa and Paul here, whoever wants to take this one. Okay.
Thank you, Chair and Councillor. Yes, the Environmental Health Department and the environmental wardens who do patrol the borough are aware of that particular area. They have been out and they have searched the evidence on a couple of occasions, or searched the material for evidence. We did actually issue 2 fixed penalty notices as a result of names and information that we did find within the waste itself. So those matters are being pursued through our legal processes, and they will provide a deterrent. You will maybe recall that the fixed penalty applicable to a fly tipping incident is £400 fixed penalty, so it's not a small amount by any means. So certainly we would aim to make sure that that deterrent effect is pushed through. The wardens are also aware of the fact that the recycling centre shall be closing, so they have it proactively programmed that there will be further inspections and an increased number of inspections in that area. It is very frustrating for me and the officers as well to see, that this just activity, no matter, how much we push this, it persists. But we will be there, we will be patrolling. If we do obtain anybody's evidence or witness anybody dumping material, I can assure you it will be dealt with through the enforcement policy that the members have agreed, and that is a zero tolerance approach. We are working also closely with environmental services in terms of getting the material cleared and lifted, and communication between the 2 departments in that regard. So as I say, look, we are aware of the issue. There will be proactive patrols, I can assure you of that, with the aim of catching any offenders that appear there in the next wee while.
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to bring in Councillor O'Dowd.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, I know we had spoke about it at a previous meeting, but what provisions are being put in place for the new line closing for them 3 weeks for people? I know the other recycling centres, couldn't think of the word there. Recycling centres are extending their hours and things like that, but is there anything being put in place in Lurgan? I know Councillor Mallon had suggested even skips being put outside the recycling centre. I don't know if that, but it's a deterrent from them fly tipping.
Thank you, Councillor O'Dowd. Can I just check who's going to take this one? Lisa? Perfect.
Yeah, thank you for your the comments there as well. We have given members of the public 4 weeks' notice to plan their activities and stuff around the closure of New Line as well. We've also got other 8 recycling centres that we will have at the site too, and we will continue to monitor the situation around the site. We'll work again with Paul's team in environmental health to do regular inspections around the area, and if it does become an issue, then we again will continue to monitor it and implement anything actions as necessary.
Thank you, Lisa. Members, I've no further lights on, and that concludes our business for tonight. Thank you for your cooperation and safe journey home.